Joining me now is Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty. Her office's jurisdiction over homicide investigations in Minneapolis, including any potential prosecution of the federal agent who killed Renee Nicole Good. Thank you so much for being here with me tonight and for being with all of us and helping people understand who are watching and are not living in Minneapolis what exactly is going on the ground. I just want to start. There's so much news that's always breaking on this. And I just want to start by asking you about news that broke tonight, that the FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office were instructed to change the subject of their probe, which was initially a civil rights investigation into the ICE agent, of course, and investigate Good herself for criminal liability, even though she was already dead. This is obviously horrific for anybody, even who's not a lawyer, to hear. But as a longtime prosecutor, what's your reaction to that?
It's, excuse me, it's not surprising because we had conversations with both the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office to make sure that there was a joint investigation with our state law enforcement agency, the BCA, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, and the FBI. They had worked together. They worked together frequently. And so we had that worked out. And then it suddenly got revoked. And we had heard that that came from the U.S. attorney directly. And clearly that was on political grounds. And so it does not surprise me at all that an FBI agent who actually was on the ground and felt that there should be an investigation was so upset about it, and I would say probably had so much integrity that she chose to resign. So that part of it isn't surprising, I guess. You know, I heard you say it's not surprising but shocking that they would then turn the investigation on Renee Good or her widow.
Yeah, that is the part. The resignation doesn't shock me. I think the part about it is that they would be so galling as to try to change, that Todd Blanche and others would be directing local FBI officials and the local U.S. attorney to change the focus of the investigation onto a woman who was killed by an ICE agent. That part feels just galling to me.
There are a lot of things that are galling here. And I would say to begin with, you know, this whole thing is justified because there are claims that these people, ICE, are out getting the worst of the worst, whatever that means. I don't like that phrase. But, you know, you've brought up some great examples of the people that they have targeted, including the elderly Hmong gentleman who is a citizen and was dragged out of his home in his boxers and his Crocs. And the only reason he had that blanket around his shoulders was because one of his family members tried to drape it on him before he went outside into the freezing weather. It's about humiliation, and there's just no caution at all. And it just, you know, the story about the 5-year-old child, that is relatively shocking in that his father did everything he legally could do to comply with what our government asked him to do. He had permission from our government to be here and go through the process to seek asylum. So they were here relying on our own government. His father has no convictions whatsoever. So what is the point of targeting him? How do you justify that in terms of public safety? And it's really frustrating, actually, to hear people talk about the fact that this 5-year-old has been detained. Because look, what do we mean when we say detained? We're talking about a jail. We're talking about a cage. We're talking about a 5-year-old child. And I know the administration keeps saying, well, what else were we supposed to do? And I can tell you it's not take the child, not take the father, understanding that they were undergoing or going through the asylum process. There was absolutely no reason to detain, arrest either one of them. And now they're both in Texas, apparently, in a facility. And I'd ask anybody out there in the administration, if that was your 5-year-old child, would that be okay? And I think the truth of it is it would not be okay, but it is okay for this administration.
Which is incredibly telling. And there were a number of people through a range of reporting that were willing to take this 5-year-old child, including people from the school board. I know you have been, you have the ability, okay, your office has the ability to file charges, of course, in this investigation. You don't have cooperation, as everybody knows out there, and we try to repeat, from the FBI and then providing information. What should people know about, that's obviously incredibly difficult, but the impact of that and the likelihood that you will be able to have enough information to actually make a decision about filing charges?
So what people should know about it is that, contrary to what the administration keeps saying, is there is nothing such as absolute immunity. That is not a thing. If an ICE agent violates our criminal laws under state law, we do have jurisdiction to charge. So I think that that's really important, because the administration keeps repeating this lie about the fact that they have absolute immunity. They do not. Now, when a Minnesota police officer takes the life of a community member, our BCA, that Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, steps in by law. They do a complete and thorough investigation. They don't make recommendations, but they submit the investigation to the county attorney. We're called county attorneys in Minnesota, by the way. Everybody else calls us DAs. But they hand it over to the county attorney. And then we decide, after looking at it and applying the law, is our charges appropriate or not? And an important thing here in Minnesota, and I think across the country, is that the BCA's investigation, once the case is all done, is public. They actually post it. So people can go online and they can see exactly what the investigation showed. And when we take a look at these types of cases, we are very transparent about what our decision is and why we made the decision. And I think that that's appropriate. How else do people in this country respect and trust a government unless they're being transparent? So, the federal government did take the car, the gun, shell casings, but this is not a case about how she died. So, the autopsy report will be very important. We have created a public portal, and we received a substantial amount of information from people in the community, which has been helpful to us. So I would say to people, yes, it would be a lot nicer if the FBI would share whatever they had, although we know they stopped their investigation, so I'm not even sure how far they went. But the BCA is doing interviews right now. We are coordinating with them. We speak multiple times a day. So they are collecting all of the information that's available to them. We're collecting information from the community. There are a lot of people out there that have information, but they're afraid. Who do we give it to? And are we going to be outed? And are we going to be threatened and targeted? So we are working with community on that. It's important here to get this decision right. I want to be clear about that. And so when we reach a point where we think we have all the information we're going to get, we will make a decision about whether we have enough information to charge. If we do charge or if we don't charge, we will be very public and transparent about that decision and why.
It sounds like that's a very helpful explanation, understanding for everybody out there, including myself. It sounds like what you're saying is charges are still possible. You just have not reached the point where you have enough information quite yet, but charges are certainly still possible.
Absolutely. We have jurisdiction here. I think it's very complex in that, and this is very unusual. Should we charge, the likelihood is that Ross or the government will try to remove this case to federal court. But the interesting thing about that is, even if that happens, state law applies, and our office would still be prosecuting it. So our office is not removed from the case, and state law applies. And so there are some federal defenses, and that's something we're doing intensive research on right now. Because we want to make sure we understand what the law is and what we would be facing if we did go ahead. I think the big differences would be we would have a federal judge, and a jury pool would be drawn from all of Minnesota instead of just Hennepin County.